What is going on, guys, and welcome back to basics. In this 4-part series, we're breaking down how to build all-in-one rigs on the Headrush Prime. Last time we built a guitar rig. Today we're building a bass rig that covers clean, overdrive, fuzz, and ambient effects all in one patch. This video is going to have 4 different parts to it. The first one being core tone, the second being shaping and EQ, the third being drive and dirt, and the fourth being fuzz and effects. Let's hop right in. So diving right in, I'm just going to do a quick example and show you guys what I have on the board because I've used every single slot on it. So as you can see, you know, everything's filled. We've got our white bass wah, we've got a dynamic compressor, we've got 10-band EQ, 2 overdrives, a fuzz, we got a gate, we've got our amp, our cab, a parametric EQ, another compressor, then we've got our flanger, phaser, and then a delay. So talking about the first compressor in the pedal chain, if you guys could see here on the patch, we've got a threshold of -44, the attack of 25, a release of 151, 4:1 ratio, a knee of 15, and the makeup gain is +4. What this compressor is doing is I've got it set to 44 threshold. This may change depending on what bass you have. Active, passive preamp. I actually use the passive side of my bass amp just because I don't feel like most of the people in the world are going to have active preamps. And if they do, I tried to set it up universally so it would work that way. But we got a slower attack time at 25 milliseconds. And I did it that way because I want the transient of the bass to come through. Whether you're using a pick, especially when you're using your fingers, I want to hear some kind of fret noise. I want to hear some kind of distinction. I want to hear some kind of articulation there. So we're going to have a slow attack time so we can let the transient of the bass come through. We've got a fast release time at 150 milliseconds. That means a slow attack, it comes down, and then as soon as you're done playing, it just comes back up. The threshold comes back up, and the compressor's open again. Oh. Hand gestures causing problems since I first bought my camera. Whatever. Okay. I need to learn to not do this. Bloopers. I'll be careful. Back to it. Settle down. This is why I told y'all to wait in the truck. But so compression, we got a 4:1 ratio, which is pretty average. And I left my knee alone. I didn't mess with the knee, and then I got 4 + 4 makeup gain. And obviously this is set up in a way just so I can keep the gain staging this as close as I can. So this is, you know, guitar in the input, you're running into a wah, out of a wah, into a dynamic compressor, and now you're sitting here adjusting the volume levels, and you've brought that makeup gain up, you've set it up to where you got transients coming through, and then the compressor just releases and it's open, right? Okay, hand gestures, I gotta be careful. Oh my gosh. Okay, up next in the chain, we've got our gate. This gate isn't doing necessarily anything. It's got a super fast release time of 34 seconds. I'm just trying to control noise here. I'm not trying to affect the bass at all. This is just a gate right before the amp. So going past our gate, we're talking about amps. I've got the 69 Blue Line, the amp, and the 8x10 cab. This is based off the SVT amp and the SVT cab. On the amp side, I haven't really done a whole lot. I've turned down the treble, I've boosted the mids just a little bit, I've boosted the mid frequency, the bass ultra high, everything's essentially default except for a few subtle things. The only thing I've done is I've brought the volume up a little bit from all the treble changes and the mid changes to, like I said, continue with the gain staging. And then on the amp side, I don't think I have any EQ going. Okay, I do have the EQ. So I have on the 3-band EQ, I've pulled back to 6K and I'm rolling off 50 hertz. You know, we don't need the super highs on the bass. It's unnecessary. I've got a 421 on there. I thought the 421 sounded really good. It's on access. Everything else is default. Moving into a parametric EQ. Instead of going over it like this, I'm just going to show you my EQ curve. So again, and now this is a little crazy, and some people might think this is a little aggressive, but what I'm doubling down here, and this could be bad, this couldn't be bad, but I did it for the patch. It sounded good to me. If anything, I think it's applying more focusing and more control on the overtones. You get it. So what I've done here with the super highs, I've pulled back up to 6K again. Again, there's no need to have those super highs on a bass. It's just unnecessary. And I've pulled back 60 hertz on the low end, and then I've got a mid cut at 300 to 280 to 310 -6 with a Q of 1.5. So I've got a 6-string bass. I don't have a 5-string. I don't own a 4-string. I would like to own a 4 and a 5-string, and maybe that'll happen someday. But I own a 6-string, and I would be a little bit more aggressive with this high pass filter here. But because I use a 6-string, and because it is extended range, I wanted to make sure I didn't remove, just in bass in general, I didn't want to remove a lot of information. This is a bass guitar. It's a support instrument. If we had a number line, bass and drums would fill up most of that number line, and that would be the frequency spectrum. So it's going to have the most information. And I pulled out 300 hertz a little bit just because this tends to be where muddiness and honkiness exists in just about every bass on earth. Somewhere around here between 2 and 5 on that 6-string Ibanez I have, it was actually 300. And again, I just pulled back to 6K because we don't need those super highs. And at least I know for my bass, I still had plenty of fret noise and definition pulling it back that far, and it didn't alter. And I pulled it back far enough to where it didn't alter the audio. So, and then we have one more compressor. We have a second dynamic compressor, and this compressor is actually doing something. This compressor is important. I've got, if you can see here, we've got the threshold at -27. We've got super fast attack time of 1 millisecond. I actually think I made that too fast, and I wanted to have it down to like 2.5. We've got a release of 52, and then a ratio of 2 to 5, and knee of 15. I left that at default, and then we've got +4 makeup gain. So what this compressor is doing for us is actually making the tone, whether it's the clean, whether in the sense of the presets, whether it's the high umph, whether it's the clean, the high boost, the high umph, the low umph, or the fuzz, or any of the added effects, what this compressor is doing is creating consistency across the whole board, regardless of what is on, regardless of what you use it with. If I explain this real quick, so I've got a super fast attack time, I've got a super fast release time. I tried to make it as fast as I possibly could, but you got to be careful with that, just because I don't know if it affects this much, but in my head, I've been taught that if you have your attack time on compressors too fast, it brings in distortion from the noise floor, and it brings in distortion because of how fast it is. So I stray on the side of caution regardless of what I'm doing, because that's really fast. And then a release time of 52 seconds, that means I really just want information. I really just want noise to be grabbed as fast as possible and then let go as fast as possible. Like there's not this subtle come down and then a gradual come up. It's literally like you play, it comes down, you stop playing, it goes back up. That's the easiest way I can explain what it's going. We're about to have some bloopers here. Okay, and this is the cool thing about the ratio too. So I got the ratio at 2 to 5, and I'm not limiting. I thought about limiting, but I didn't want to. Having the ratio at 2 to 5, you're able to be a little bit more aggressive. I'm gonna use the word aggressive, and I apply this a lot in live settings. Like when I'm at work and we're on the Quantum or we're on the Avantis or whatever. I do this a lot in live settings where I will have a ratio pulled back to like 2.5 to 3, and you could be a little bit more aggressive with the threshold and not have it be so violent. So, and what I mean by violent is pumping. There won't be a pumping from the compressor. You could do more dynamically, in my opinion, with it. So we're gonna go ahead and demo that clean tone now. Right, now we're diving into section 2, which is shaping with EQ. What I'm going to go over with this section is just the MXQ right here, the 10 band we have right here, and then how that affects the clean/DI signal or the core tone of the bass. So I'm going to show you guys that. And this is the thing. So this right here is not part of the preset patch. This 10 band MXQ here literally exists as a stomp, and you turn the 10 band off and on. And this is going to be a little crazy, but you guys will understand why I did it here in a second. So for this 10 band graphic here, everything is default. Literally like what it says, even with the playthrough, it's just a high boost. I found that the SVT was a little bit too round. I didn't want to put it after the amp because I didn't want it to shape everything going after, right? I wanted it to go before the amp and before the overdrives, and I wanted it to shape prior to, prior than later. So I've got the 1K, 2K, and 4K boosted at 7.5. I know this seems aggressive, and you guys may have to change this depending on what you're playing, but for me personally, I found that this was just really good as a high boost. And before you guys start asking any questions or leaving any comments, I did already think about maybe adding another overdrive. I did think about adding a white boost or just some kind of other overdrive just to boost the highs. But the thing is like the overdrive still applied gain. It still applies saw waves. It still applied distortion to the bass tone. And the plan was to not necessarily add distortion, but to just bring out more clarity and brightness in the tone, in the clean tone itself, and use this as a boost if you wanted something a bit more violent. We're going to demo that now. Section 3. This is where things are going to start getting a little bit more exciting. We're going to be talking about both overdrives. We're going to be talking about both overdrives and the fuzz. And I didn't get to demo the fuzz in the playthrough video of Velvet, but I will make sure to demo that here. So, going over the first BD distortion 2, I know it's labeled 2, but it's because I put it in after the fact. So, this first BD 7000 is what I would recall as the Hi Umph preset. And I took it literally because of how I have the preset set here, Hi Umph. So what I did is this is just taking the core tone of what you have without the 10 band, and then you just turn on the BD, you just turn on the D7000, and you have a overdriven bass tone emphasizing saw wave, or with saw waves emphasizing the high mids and the highs of that bass tone. It's overdriving just that frequency, and then more of your lows and low mids are just cleaner. And on the overdrive pedal, what I've actually done is because it's really quite loud, it's a loud pedal, I actually have the master is usually at 10. And I had to pull it down. I pulled it down to 3 just to try to keep, the gain staging the same. And this is also why. So this is also why I ended up pulling up the output of the cabinet on the 8x10 was because I was pulling this down and I didn't have enough headroom for the output. But you can see here that I've got the bass, the low mid, and the bass and the low mids, I've pulled down just a couple dB, 2.5, or like 2.3 to 3 to -3 dB, and I'm pulling that because this is, it's accentuating the high end. The focus is on the high end information and the tone of the bass guitar. We're not trying to focus on the low end. Moving on to the second BD, it's the polar opposite. And you can see here, we got Umph. I need to be careful with these hand gestures. You guys can make plenty of bloopers from this, just saying. Totally distracting. Oh well, back to it. Let's just act like it never happened. So you can see here that I've got, you know, I'm adjusted it for the polar opposite. We've got low umph here, and it's prioritizing this, and I've got the gain staging. I've done some changing for the gain staging, and now, you know, I've actually got a little bit higher boost on the bass side, and then the low mids are at 0, but I've actually brought down the high mids and the highs for this overdrive, and this is because it's more focused on low end rumble. Think as close as I can get it, at least not, you know, sounding like just something good. Think Goliath by Carnival, that bass tone, something with a lot of overdriven low end and tight high end. And then last but not least is just a fuzz, and there really isn't anything I could think of wanting to have a fuzz in there unless you want to be experimental and have some fun with the added effects and stuff. But the fuzz is very subtle. I don't have a 3-band on it, but what I would suggest, if you guys do like using the fuzz, and the fuzz does sound good tonally, I pulled it, I have it in a place dynamically where it's not just noise. It's actually quite pleasant to listen to. But with this fuzz particularly, if you wanted to turn on the 3-band, I would just make sure to, let's say, do like a 3.5 or maybe a 2.5 Q, and I would go to like that 2.5 to like the 3.5 area, and I would just pull down a little bit right here because it is a little bit harsh. All right, last but not least, guys, we're coming into section 4. In this section, we're going to talk about effects and the wah. I know I said fuzz, like fuzz was going to be this, but I did wah. I did the fuzz in the last section. So we're going to do effects and the wah with this section here. And just jumping right in, we've got 3 effects. I chose just general effects for a number of reasons. I chose a flanger, I chose a stone phaser, and then there's just a BBD delay. And then we've got the white bass wah. I would have done another wah, but I didn't want something too violent. I wanted something subtle that just was going to add wideness or movement or just create a sense of uniqueness. So we've got just a standard flanger, and in default stereo, I've actually slowed the rate down a lot. And obviously you guys could set this up to whatever you want it to be and however you're once you get comfortable with it. But I like a super subtle, I like a deep flange, I like to actually hear the flange, but I don't like it too fast. And I don't have it synced up. I like it to be its own thing. I actually kind of like the off balance, a little bit of the movement when it comes to songs, but I have it super slow and subtle just so you can live in that and enjoy it a little bit. And it's the same thing with the phaser. It's not synced up, it's in stereo, it's meant to be heard in stereo. We've got rate, it's 0.5, it's slow. Depth is not as violent as the flange, and then the feedback is at 60, and the mix is brought back just a little bit. And again, this is existing just for a sense of uniqueness, creating a sense of wideness on the bass in music and in live like in a live setting. And then we have a BBD delay, and this is just for fun. It's just a delay for fun. It is in sync, it's in a quarter. The feedback and the input gain are at default. The mix is actually brought back a little bit because I didn't want the delay in the mix. It needed to be behind the bass guitar. I didn't want it to flood out and create overtones and create problems. And then I create the tails on, you know, in case you do changeovers, it's not an immediate cutoff. And then on the wah, it's at the normally, at least how I was taught in pedal chains, you know, you would have any of your modular effects as close to the guitar as you possibly can. So whether that applies to modeling or not, I don't know. If you do know, please leave comments below. I'm all for being educated myself. But I've got the wah. It's the very first pedal in the chain. It's the closest thing to the bass guitar. And I've actually got the Q of 50. It doesn't go fully open. It's just there for uniqueness, to change the sound, to add some kind of vibrance. Let's demo that. This rig gives you clean, warmth, edge width, overdrive, and full-on fuzz all in one patch. It's simple, flexible, and ready for any gig or session, and totally versatile for a number of genre types. So it's the end of the video, everyone, and I've only got a few things to say to each and every one. To my community, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for the continued support. It's because of y'all that I continue to make these videos regardless of the live streams and the music content and stuff involving the Headrush Prime. If you're new to the community and this is your first time checking me out, please consider liking and subscribing the video and get that notification bell checked so you know when I go live and when I upload new content to my YouTube. If you've liked the video and you enjoy hanging out, check out my Discord and my Linktree in the About Me section of my. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. If you end up using the bass tone in any way or shape or form, I'm going to put a link to it in the description box so you guys can download it off of my Google Drive. Leave me comments. Let me know what changes you've made to it. Let me know in what instances you've used it in. I would love to hear your feedback. You guys are awesome. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time.